Hello and welcome to the very first day of Number Corner for February. I'm Miss Trammell and I'm here to work with you all to expand your knowledge of all things mathematics. This month, or specifically today, we are going to focus on solving multi-step word problems. But not just solving word problems, but also writing equations to solve word problems. We're going to be writing our own equations, but before we start writing our own equations, we're going to look at some examples of different equations that could be written to match a story problem. And so that's our focus for today. We're going to read a problem, we're going to make sense of what's happening in the problem, and think through some really good test-taking skills on how to solve these word problems and how to write expressions to match. So why not just go ahead and get started? Go ahead and get out your Number Corner workbooks so that you can follow along with me. I believe we are on page 60, and we are going to start with number 1, and I will give you a moment to get ready. All right, let's get started. So here's problem number 1. I'm going to read it out loud, and I want you to just think to yourself, what's happening in this problem, and what would I do to solve this problem? Sam is organizing school supplies for his classmates. He has 27 red crayons, 35 blue crayons, and 63 yellow crayons. He divides them evenly between the 25 students in his class. How many crayons should each student get? So take a moment and think about it and think to yourself, what would you do to solve this problem? And maybe before you even think that, think about what should you do to solve this problem based on what's happening. Put it in your own words. What do we know? Okay, we know that there's 27 red, 35 blue, and 63 yellow crayons he shares with 25 students. And so, I'm not going to ask you to solve it. I want you to look at some of the equations that are already presented for us to choose from so that we can choose the equation that actually matches what's happening in this situation. So, A, B, C, or D. Just take a moment and look at the different expressions, different equations, and let's see if we can figure out what's going on. Like, what are some observations? What can you determine from looking at these 4 choices? Okay, so maybe you already thought to yourself, if we have 27 red, 35 blue, and 63 yellow, we know that we need to do what with those numbers? We should add them together. And then we're sharing, and it even gives us a clue. It says divides. It says we're dividing. So we know we're adding and we're dividing. So when the first thing that we should do when we're trying to determine which equation is the right equation is we should probably look for the equations that we know for sure don't match the problem. So that is the first step. Figure out which equation does not match the problem. So let's do that. If we know it's 2 steps, we know we're adding and dividing, can it be A? No, I'm going to cross it out. It's a really good test-taking skill. Can't be A because we already thought through, we made sense of what's happening, we figured out what we would do to solve it, and so now we're just looking for an expression. Now, B has adding and dividing, D has adding and dividing, C has only division. Does that fit the problem? No. And that actually is part of our second step, which is to think about the operations that would match the problem, which we already know are addition and division. So let's look back and see what we would do next. We thought about how we would solve the problem. We figured out which ones don't match. We kind of also looked for the operation symbols that do match the problem. Let's see if there's anything in parentheses. Parentheses are really special because it tells us what we're going to do first. So if I look at option B, we have 63 divided by 25 in parentheses, which means that's what we would do first. Is that what you would do first if you were going to solve this problem? No, we already said we need to add. We have to figure out how many crayons before we can share them with our 25 students. So that leaves B or D. We kind of know B shouldn't work because we're not dividing first. What are we doing first? We're adding first. So looking at the parentheses showing us what we do first. What are parentheses showing? Right, it shows us what we do first. Now, I also want to point out we see C in these equations. That's actually our variable. Can you say that with me? Variable. Now say it really quickly 3 times. Variable, variable, variable. Now, hopefully it's in your head, and so maybe you'll use it or recognize it if you see it on any other problems. It's a variable. It just stands for what we don't know. So now we have a new word added to our vocabulary. So which problem or which answer would you choose? Yeah, D makes the most sense because we know we're adding first, and then we're going to divide whatever total we get by 25 because we need to give each student some crayons, and there are 25 students. So I want to look at number 2. You should already have your book out. So you guys are going to try to solve number 2 by yourself. I will walk you through it. I'm just not going to go over the answer with you just yet because I really want to see that you're thinking, because pretty soon you're going to have to write your own equation, and maybe your equation will use that P word. What was it? The parentheses, right? That shows us what happens first. So I'll read it for you. Conrad is saving money for a new bike. He needs $175. If Conrad earns $15 a day for 6 days, how much more money does Conrad need for his new bike? First things first, you need to think about the problem. See if you can put this problem into your own words. Okay, so I'm helping you out with this one. If I put it in my own words, I know he needs $175. He gets $15 a day for 6 days. So 15, 15, 15, 15, 15. How much more money does he need? If you are struggling to think about this problem, then I would suggest that you draw a picture. So if you need to draw your days of the week, Monday through, I guess, Saturday, since it's only 6 days a week, or Sunday through Friday, and then put the $15 and draw it out so you can think about it, do that. If you've already thought through it and you're ready to solve this problem and choose your answer, then I challenge you to write another equation that you could also use to represent this problem. Perhaps by putting our variable into maybe some different locations. Who remembers what a variable is? Right, our variable is our unknown quantity. It's what we are trying to figure out. So that's what I would like for you to do for number 2. And I'll go over really quickly with you our strategies. First, figure out which ones don't match the problem. Then you're going to figure out the operations that you should use. And you'll know that because you've thought through it. Maybe you even drew a picture to kind of figure it out. Think about how you would solve it. So maybe you might go through the motions of actually solving this problem, even though that's not the question. And don't forget about those parentheses. They're very important because they tell you what you are going to do first. So your job today, independently of course, is to answer number 2 and number 3. And number 3, I'm not going to read to you. Okay? We will come back together tomorrow, or not tomorrow, maybe another day, and talk about the problems that you've solved and how you solved them, how you thought about it. So make sure you're working to get them done because you are responsible for your learning. Have a great rest of your Monday. I will see you guys again tomorrow.